She's fading. We gotta go. I'll get my car. I brought mine. Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
Okay, I think I'm on now. Hello, welcome to another episode of Bat Dance Discussions. So, huge Batfleck fan. I'm a huge fan of Ben Affleck's Batman. But, you know, he does other movies as well. And there was one movie that came out this year, Hypnotic. So, I was like, let's talk about this one on my channel. And I decided to bring on another fan of Ben Affleck, one who did a spoiler-free review of this movie in his channel. So please welcome Trey of the Bat Channel.
Hello there. How's it going, brother?
Good. It's Friday, and I'm ready to talk about another one of Ben Affleck's movies.
Yeah, man, he's killing it this year. The movie Air it's gonna be an Oscar-winning film, and then there was this really cool film that came out just last weekend, and I can't wait to talk to you about it because it's like one of those things where I feel like people are gonna enjoy it as time goes on because there's a lot of details they can pick from it. But yeah, man, it's exciting. I like it. What's up, Josh?
I just have to highlight that comment. Definitely, yes, definitely in that Batfleck shape.
Well, he has to with with J-Lo. He got to keep up.
And he has another movie coming out next month too, The Flash.
The Flash, yeah, 3 films in 1 year. Hey, can't go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Can't go wrong with Ben Affleck's doing a lot, especially with artist equity. I expect a lot of great things coming up for Ben Affleck in the future. You know, maybe a certain project on Netflix with a certain DC character if they can get the license, fighting
That
an
would be nice.
assassin.
That would be nice.
Netflix, hint, hint.
Wink, wink. Which eye am I winking? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, so I saw I watched your spoiler-free review, and this is definitely a great way for you to really expand on those topics. Because I thought of doing a spoiler-free review myself, but I was just like, the way this movie was set up, it's just like it's hard to really get into it without like diving into the spoilers. So that's a warning for you people if you didn't read the title. So spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The whole thing is fake. It's some weird simulation set up to Ben Affleck's character, Daniel Roque.
And then Neo comes out of nowhere, Keanu Reeves, and just starts killing everybody. It was awkward. And Hugo Weaving popped up at the very end. I don't know what's going on with this.
I don't know. I could have actually I could see them really doing that.
Yeah, honestly, he'd be a pretty cool like crossover, but I don't think because they weren't Warner Brothers. Yeah, no, Matrix was, but not Hypnotic. That was Catch Up Entertainment, which is a new film studio as well. So that's cool. Yeah, but head up by Robert Rodriguez. That's exciting. Everyone's getting their own studio now.
Yeah, seems that way. Still Catch Up Entertainment. I kind of laughed when I saw that one.
Right. Yeah, it is a silly name, but I wish the best for them because I heard they started their company like right before COVID, so everything got shut down and they couldn't film anything. So it was literally like 3 years of laying dormant, and then finally they were able to kick off a film like Hypnotic, and what a cool idea.
Yeah, it really was. It was a really cool idea, a really cool premise. So this actually kind of brings me into the first thing I want to talk about. So just kind of like, we're going to call this like the initial premise. So this is what we saw in the trailer, what it looked like before the twist came in. So at this point, as far as the audience knows, it's Ben Affleck is a detective named Daniel Rourke. Rourke? That's how you pronounce it? Rourke.
Yeah.
Going after some guy who
Rourke.
hypnotizes.
No, you're right. Rourke. Yeah, I think it's Rourke.
Rourke. Yeah, there was another arc.
Something like that.
These damn tongue twisters. But yeah, Daniel Rourke going after Delrain, who hypnotizes people to pull off some heist connected to his daughter. Just as far as like we know in that phase, like what do you think of like that premise, like that part of the film?
I mean, from the initial idea just of what we got from the trailer, it looks like it was going to be insane. And from that moment on of seeing the trailer, my first thought was everything I'm going to see in this movie is probably a lie, or it's not what they're trying to say it is. Something's going to be revealed, because I initially thought when they were talking about hypnotics, hypnotists, and it was going to be like this Now You See Me Inception style film. So immediately I was like, the first thing they're going to show me, wherever they're going to throw me into in this, is not going to be, it's not what it seems. There's someone behind the curtain doing something. So I was already like going into it that no narrative that's being told here is the truth. But it was very, very cool. I love stuff like that. I love trying to watch a film and seeing if, world's greatest detective, if I can pick it apart and figure it out.
In hindsight, I should have figured that out too when you started seeing people like, oh, you're not really this person. You're really Delrain. When they went to that place in Mexico with that former person from like the Hypnotics, or that affiliate person. Yeah. You know what I'm talking. I can't remember that person's name, but like when like you could really see that they can like literally just pretend to be other people. That's when it really is like, okay, something has to kind of be up here. And it just, what I really like about this film is that one thing is like, what I love is that if it really was just like this initial premise, it still would have been a really good film. Because I mean, that's still a pretty cool story. Like Daniel Rourke, a detective, trying to stop a guy who can hypnotize people. I mean, think of, I kind of got vibes of Jessica Jones season 1 a little bit in this part of the film.
I didn't see Jessica Jones, but that's interesting. And what aspect of Jessica Jones did you like kind of feel from this movie?
So the bad guy's name, Kilgrave, he basically could tell people to do something and they would do it against their will.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
So basically, it's kind of like that same premise. It's like, in a way, you can't really trust anyone, because even someone who is a good friend to you, someone who actually is a good person and cares about you and would never betray you, if they were acting against their will, you can't really trust them. You can't trust anyone. And that's one thing I really kind of like when Rourke's partner, and we'll kind of mostly talk about it like that's what actually happened when his partner, what was his name? I thought his name was
Nix.
Nix.
Yeah,
Nix.
it was played by like JD Pardo, something like that.
Yeah, Nix. So like when he betrayed them, it's, again, you kind of get that vibe, and then I don't know, I thought that part was really, really clever right there. It's like that's why I kind of really love that part of that premise.
Yeah, I mean the idea that everything, I mean, basically you're throwing your protagonist in this world of where everything's foreign, there's nothing he can trust, and he's trying to cling on to the truth, but everything around him is a lie. So it makes for this, especially for like a detective story, and you already have this, and Ben Affleck did a wonderful job playing this like classic cynical detective, where he's just very observant and he's kind of cold-hearted a little bit, especially because he's coming off of tragedy, and he's just trying to stay focused and stay sane, as he puts it in the movie. And you could just see that it really, when you think about it, the man just had like no shot of like putting this together and like to solving the case, because just everything was working against him literally in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Just like,
But I
the
love,
fact that, he lost his daughter, and the bad guy is like essentially messing with him, using his daughter, and like finding out too that the person who kidnapped his daughter might have actually essentially been innocent.
that gave me some like major Minority Report vibes, when they're trying to make it look like this guy's the villain. This is the one that killed, Tom Cruise's character's child, kidnapped him. And, it's revealed that he was forced to say these things, to do these things. It was very kind of like in that similar aspect with this character. And I knew as soon as we heard there was something, I think, when they caught the guy and he's like, I have no memory of doing this. Nothing makes sense. I wasn't even there. To me, clearly, there's a reason for why they're searching for his daughter. When he goes to the bank and finds the picture of his daughter, I was thinking his daughter was somehow the key to his reality. So it was kind of funny how it all plays out in that film.
Yeah, it really is. And kind of you kind of transition well, but just like one more thing, I was like, before we get to like the twist, I really kind of love Diana Cruz in this movie. Just like the way how that's
Alice Braga, yeah, she did a wonderful job with her character, Diana Cruz. Yeah, I really dug that. I will say it threw me off a little bit. I remember when I was like watching it and like trying to figure out what's her angle, what's she trying to achieve here. I was like wondering if I think I said in my review, the movie kind of reminded me of Total Recall. So I kept thinking like maybe she was his wife trying to help him through the journey, and in a way, but she kind of had this nice twist of where she was the bad guy. But it was very smart how they wrote her character. I will say it threw me off when they kind of played off that Ben Affleck's character, Danny Rourke, had a wife, and then he started like kissing Alice Braga's character, and I was like, whoa, we just forget about his wife now. But that's when it kind of clicked, like, oh, like he must, like this system that he's in, he must be breaking through it. This must be like him kind of unchaining himself from the illusion of what he's going through.
Well, that kind of sets us up perfectly for kind of the next topic, is the twist, the big twist where you find out that none of it is real. It is some weird, it's kind of like a Matrix type of situation, I'll call it, for lack of a better term, where they put Daniel Rourke in this kind of simulation, hypnotic simulation, we'll call it, to find out where his daughter is. And just like once it was like finally revealed that, hey, this is the premise of the movie, this right here. Like, what do you think of that?
Like when it finally like revealed the twist of him being in the simulation.
Yeah.
To me, it wasn't, and this is where my wife hates me a little bit when she goes, when she sees these movies with me. She did tell me, she was like, I'm glad you didn't say anything in the middle of the movie because you would have ruined it for me. But like, by literally the first 10 minutes, I had kind of like figured out everything that was going on. There was a few things that kind of, I didn't expect them to go that route. But in terms of the multiple twists that they had when they finally reveal that he's kind of in this simulation and that he himself is a hypnotic, these people who are trained in this secret government kind of military organization where basically they were brilliant hypnotists that kind of reached that extra power in their minds to be able to control people. And the military was trying to use it to their advantage. And this one guy, Del Rain, who's played by William Fletcher, kind of decides that he's better than everyone. So he's going to kind of make his own group and kind of take over. And he was like considered the most powerful one. And I just loved that whole concept that he even had his like Danny Rourke's wife involved in it. And that it was just this entire, it was cool and almost silly. And when I say silly, it was almost silly just because you see the set of like when he's out of the simulation and they're trying to like have this, what's the word I'm looking for? They try to have this like intervention with him saying like, hey, like, this is, we've ran you through this simulation 11 times now and you keep, 12 times now. And
yeah, 12.
You keep messing it up. And he's kind of seeing everyone like the tape on the ground. This is where this is. This is where this set is. And it's like this whole production that these people are doing. It was kind of like brilliant in the way. And I think it was done on purpose because it kind of takes you out of the movie to make you think this is all fake. And in a way, that's exactly what they were doing to him, right? They were trying to show you everything you just saw was planned. It was produced. It was lights, camera, action, everyone had a role to play. And it was kind of an interesting literal metaphor of what was actually going on through the story. And I dug it.
Yeah. And it really kind of answered a lot of questions for me too. Cause there's certain setup when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, this explains that. Cause one was when Del Rey's supposed to be the most powerful hypnotic. That's what they said. But then all of a sudden Rourke, who is not a hit, has no training whatsoever, is able to just have the cops arrest Del Rey like that. Like that's some Rey Skywalker level bad writing right there, unless there's something more to it.
Which in this case there was, right? Like it was literally them. And I kind of had a feeling that one of the tales that I had that Ben Affleck's character, Danny Rourke, was a hypnotic was when he first meets Diana Cruz's character at her shop. And he says, I can be quite persuasive too. And you kind of get the sense like he's so confident about how persuasive he could be. And he used that word with some emphasis to it that was like, is he one as well? And sure enough, that's how it played out. Like I said, in terms of the different twists and turns that this story took, it was like very like, I liked that. I liked being paranoid throughout the entire film, trying to figure it out. And I was pretty much on the right track throughout the film of, okay, this is what this probably is. Yep, that's it. Yep. And then this is what's probably gonna happen. Yep. But while that was for me, I know with my wife, she did not expect a lot of what was going on. And for her, that was like so enjoyable, which is why she gave it like a monster score of like 8. I think she said an 8.8. So
You said in your video, you said 0.7.
8.7.
Yeah, that at least what your spoiler review or spoiler-free review said.
Yeah. I know it's either 8.7 or 8.8 for her. Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah, and I think, again, I didn't see the choice coming as much as you did. It was kind of a bit of a shock to me when that happened too, but a lot of things just clicked better. Like one thing I think they did really well with the twist is with Diana Cruz's character and Daniel Rourke's wife. They did like a good job of like kind of slowly making the wife look more and more like Diana Cruz as opposed to, and even the daughter too. Like in like the initial flashback, she has blonde hair.
Mm.
And then as like the things changed, they gave her black hair.
Yeah, those were certain details I was looking for too. Like, knowing that probably everything I was seeing in this movie was probably not the reality of what's actually going on. I was like looking for details, like if words were mirrored or if they, if there were certain things that happened that couldn't be done in reality and stuff like that. And her character, especially when you start to see those details, like wasn't she blind? But they did it such in a great way. Like you said, if you're not like looking for these details and you just like went and enjoyed and were entertained, like the amount, I'm sure if people who did that and rewatched it, the details that Robert Rodriguez probably put into the film to kind of show his cards a little bit, but kind of lead you on and create this confusion. Brilliant. I think people dug that.
Yeah, and I think it's like one thing too with that twist though is that it's like you gotta be careful when you do a twist in a movie in general, because one thing you want to make sure is that if you go back in the movie, does it make sense? Because I've seen some movies, I've seen some shows where it's like they do a twist and I'm like, the writers did not know that this was the case at the time of this episode. Like maybe a bit of an apples to oranges comparison, but like Black Lightning. I saw basically they had to recast one of the actresses and they had like a story reason for it. And then in the finale, it was like, oh no, so the person that you thought was the new actress playing this character, it turned out it was a completely different character. And nothing about that twist made me go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That explains this. I'm like, no, the writers pulled that out of their ass at the last minute. Whereas this film, it really kind of felt like, no, they actually planned this. Like the little details about stuff like why Daniel Rourke was a good hypnotic, why Diana Cruz kind of quickly trusted him. I mean, at first she's like, stay away from me. And, she kind of did a 180 on that pretty quickly. But that's because they needed them together.
Yeah, and they kind of handled that in an interesting way where, she's the one that gives them the tip about William Fletcher's character, Del Rain, of how he's going to do the heist on the bank, and to kind of see her interactions with other people around Danny Rook's character are quite telling too of how she handles them. And like I said, yeah, very trusting. And for someone who understands the power of Del Rain, she kind of did a horrible job, right? And that was the point. Like she kind of did a horrible job to stay away from him or to not keep him on the trail, leading the breadcrumbs to Danny Rook. And that was all part of the plan, I'm sure I would love to see this film either in theaters again, or I can't wait until I think it's going to come out on, I think Peacock in a couple of months. Cause I can't wait to kind of like watch it scene by scene again and see those little details, because it was just, there were some really good Easter eggs, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I agree. And I can't wait to see this film again as well, just to kind of watch it again, see, oh yeah, that makes sense. I know where this is going. I know where, like, you see how this is like a hypnotic simulation. Well, again, I don't know what else to call it other than that, but it's
No,
just
I
again,
think
I think
simulation is the best way to put it, because that's exactly what he was going through. It was a simulation, you know.
yeah, okay, yeah, exactly, good simulation because I guess they did like hook him up to machines and stuff like that. So I kind of want to get to another point in this movie where kind of we're going to kind of call this like the hypnotic rules. So this is kind of like the rules to how this stuff works, like the power structure, the like what the abilities can do for people. And I'll kind of let you start. Like, what did you think about like that? Like, did it work for you? Were some things that could have been improved?
In terms of like their powers.
Yeah, like just how like the powers work.
I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, is there ways they could have executed it better? Probably. But you know where I kind of felt, and I think I said this in my spoiler-free review, um, was I felt like 90 minutes to it, like build this world that they were doing, because there's a ton of world building in this film. Like literally there's sequels, there's spin-off ideas they could easily do from there. Hell, there's even a prequel that they could make of this movie, because it's so fascinating that there's this secret organization, you know, that the government was trying to make, you know, into a military force of supernatural abilities, basically. And to kind of have them, it would be a shame if this didn't continue in some way. But it's, in terms of the hypnotic rules, I mean, there's a lot they can play with it. I don't know if we can really define it or like put barriers on it, because as we saw, it kind of depends on your power level. You know, with Ben Affleck, obviously he was in a simulation, so they kind of made him forget his power. So he was like figuring out, but once he did, you realize how strong he was. And just like his wife, you know, same deal. They made her forget her power. So even though she was chained a bit by the bad guys. You know, she couldn't go to the full max until she was kind of released from her own illusion. And then William Fletcher's Del Rey's character, like he obviously you kind of hear that he's this legend. He's the one that they all fear. And in the movie, you kind of don't like, you see his power and clearly he's very talented, but the fact that when you see Danny Rook's character be able to kind of turn the tables on him a bit, you kind of go like, well, how powerful is this guy? Like, is he like, or is there someone out there who is more powerful? And the twist at the very, very end with the mid credits shows you just how powerful Del Rey is. And if you didn't stick around for the mid credit scene, this film immediately improved simply by that quick 30-second mid credit scene. If you didn't watch it, you lost out. You probably went confused, you know, left the theater confused.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it only takes 30 seconds to change an entire context of a movie. Like it's not, Ben Affleck will say Batman v Superman. I mean, think of how much the 30 minutes was improved by just those small little details added to the Ultimate Edition. And I feel the same way too, because at first it felt like the power levels were very inconsistent. To me, before that mid-credit scene, it felt like the power levels were whatever the plot needed it to be. Because all of a sudden, Del Rey's this most powerful person, and then Rourke's immune to being hypnotized, but at the same time, they can still fool people with illusions. It was weird stuff. Like there was definitely some weird inconsistencies to how stuff actually works, because it's why you have to be careful about making a character too powerful, because sometimes you wonder, well, then why can't Del Rey do this? Like, why can't Del Rey, I don't know, put Rourke's character in some sort of situation where he has to know where his daughter is, or else she's in danger, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a way, it's very much like, it was kind of like Men in Black, right? When Agent K, Tommy Lee Jones' character, neuralizes himself so that way he can't remember, an important key information. I think, how's it go? Like that he can't find who the light is, the light of Zartha is, and they're trying to do all the stuff to figure it out, and they kind of throw him in this maze to finds that key to unlocking that information. And so there was a lot of one-upping for sure, and I feel like they could play that off really well in the sequel if that ever happens, like in a way with Del Rey's character. He could have, I mean, if he really is as powerful as he is, and what you see in the mid-credits scene, it's like, how did he even allow this to happen? If he's so powerful, how did he not like see this coming and like plan for it? And I get the sense that maybe he wanted it to go down exactly the way it is, because this was a test in a way for, as hopefully no one's, we said spoiler alert, so if anyone missed it, it's all your guys' fault. But maybe it could have been as simply as he wanted to see just how powerful Minnie was. They kind of did this like Star Wars thing in a way where two Jedis, get together and they create a stronger force sensitive being, and that's exactly what their daughter was. She was, just naturally God-given power of being the strongest hypnotic in the entire world. And for someone like Del Rey, who wants that to absorb that power and train her as, his own Padawan in a sense, his own Sith apprentice, it could have been all a test just to see just how strong she has gotten over the last, was it 2 or 3 years since he's seen his daughter?
I think it was 4 years, but
4 years.
Yeah, that's another good point too. And I think the movie definitely would have benefited from a longer runtime just to kind of explain how this stuff works better, because you got to be careful when you get into this kind of Inception Tenet stuff, because I have a bit of a hot take for some people. I didn't think Tenet was very good. And I think my issue with Tenet, and I'll explain how this kind of relates to Hypnotic, is that it got confusing for the sake of being confusing. It felt like it didn't like.
That's fair.
It was like one of those things where it's like you're trying to be smart by saying a bunch of stuff, but no, it didn't like work for me. I was like confused what was happening half the time, and
I actually just watched Tenet recently for I think it was my second time watching it, and after watching it again, I'm still confused exactly what all happens in it. Could you imagine trying to do a movie review on that movie where this happens, but it's not really this and this and that?
Yeah,
and there's this time going backwards.
And that's just not good. Like if you watch a movie a second time and you still don't understand it, it's not good. And that's why I think this movie did Hypnotic mostly did a good job of avoiding that. But there are a few, I feel like it felt a little tenety in that way.
Can you give us an example of like what particular moment you were kind of like, that's too confusing and they didn't really pay that off?
Actually, you know what? This sets up the next transition perfectly.
We haven't even gone through this, you and I. I'm picking your brain and I know what's happening, my man.
So the third act, I guess this kind of brings me to kind of just that third act, that final battle where it just felt like it was such like a back and forth of like fooling. Oh, so I'm making you see different things now. It's like Del Rey is like Rourke's foster parents were dead, and no, now they're alive. Oh, now they're really dead. It just a lot of that, I guess, kind of just got, or like how, I guess how like if like how Del Rey could be fooled. Because I don't know, I still feel like he was fooled at certain points, mainly because he lost all his men and women, all his people working for him, and Hypnotics aren't exactly an unlimited resource, so I don't see him sacrificing all his men for all his people. Sorry, all his people. I want to be politically correct in this for a test, and I think it's just questions like his wife was confused, right? Or his wife was like hypnotized into doing all this stuff,
and kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? She kind of, it was by her choice, right? Her doing. Like she knew it was part of her plan, her and Danny Rourke's and Minnie's plan to kind of go back into the simulation, and in a way, like while they were trying to keep their daughter safe, they knew they were always going to be hunted. So if they reintegrated back into the simulation and lost all that valuable time of being with their family, that whole sacrifice that they go through, in a way, it was kind of the Trojan horse, I guess you could say. It was literally a Trojan horse where they invited the wolves in for dinner only to massacre them all. Now that's where I say maybe if in the mid-credit scene, if they did a better job with Del Rey's character by saying, maybe giving a smile after you see that it's him who's still alive. And he kind of says like, oh, she really is that powerful, so it kind of gives us that hint that he allowed it. Like he allowed his entire group and army to be killed just to get an idea of how powerful she has gotten. So that is a detail that may have improved the movie right there. But it still could be improved if they explain that in the second one,
Yeah, and and there's a way to kind of like retroactively make that first movie better, but just and again, I think the movie did suffer from such a short runtime because like going into the third act, one thing that really like all of a sudden like Rourke's foster parents, I had so many issues with that premise. Like first of all, these hypnotics are all knowing. It seems like they have access to all these records and stuff. How did they miss that? Like that's not something that I felt like would have been hidden. That he grew up in a freaking foster home.
Well, I think if anything, it just goes to show like clearly he was probably one of the leaders of that group and may have, I mean, he would have had easy access into all that information, so he could have easily deleted their files. Just, I know I may bring up Star Wars again, but just like how Count Dooku erased Camino, because he was able to get into the system and not make sure that he knew what the other group could have access to, so he could block it.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good point too, though. And I guess it's like one of those things that maybe would have benefited with a longer runtime because me with a movie, I don't like having to come up with too many explanations in my head for it to make sense. Like, 10 seconds of like maybe showing Rourke, interfering with the system, showing that very thing.
Yeah,
would have helped the movie a lot more.
You actually bring up a very good point. One of the issues I did have with this movie is I felt like they did, like, especially Diana Cruz's character, they did like way too much of explaining, to kind of be like, well, this is why this happens, and this is what, Hypnotics does, and this is the like through dialogue, they tried to explain their entire world building in 90 minutes. And when I say it's a massive world that they're building, I'm not kidding. There's a lot that went into this. And I feel like, and I think I also said this in my spoiler review, where like if they would have given us like an extra 10 or 15 minutes in the first act to kind of create some normalcy, with Danny Rourke's character, to make us feel like we're not already in the simulation, to make us question at some point if he's in the simulation, but also make us question if we're in reality and that at some point he went into, this simulation, and to kind of throw the audience off guard like that. But the moment they it opens up on his eye, the memory of his daughter getting kidnapped, there's some unusualness going on, and you see the details of how Del Rey hypnotizes people, and it's similar to the flashback that Danny Rourke's character has with getting distracted by something and then immediately something's not the same. There was never a moment to kind of say, to kind of give your audience some comfort, to like kind of get a feel for the world you're building. He kind of just 90 minutes, we're going to throw you right in it, and I wish there was a little more details, give us, it would have benefited if it was a 2-hour film, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And especially for that small of a runtime, there's no need to make the movie shorter. And just, kind of like the third act just a little bit more, just kind of, it really kind of made that third act feel rushed. It kind of made the third act kind of feel like, okay, we need an action sequence, go. Because I'm like, just like wondering, like the big question is like, they introduced these foster parents. I'm like so curious about them. Like, were they former hypnotics in the system? Because they seem to know some stuff. They seem to be able to kind of, they didn't seem they were completely foolish people. They seem to kind of be able to know some stuff. Did they hide from the system? It's just like questions like that are kind of in my head. It felt like all of a sudden it's like they were just there as plot devices to make that final action sequence possible.
Well, it's certainly just based off on some of the details that you saw around their house where they, and honestly, that was an illusion too. But like when you see where they really have been staying for the last couple of years, like, yeah, they're out in the middle of the desert. They probably don't have any access to the internet. So they're very off the grid on purpose, and that could have been by everything Danny Rourke's character kind of helped set them up, kind of helped them prepare for this moment to get ready because they knew Minnie was always going to be hunted,
Yeah. And again, I guess it's just, I would have liked to, again, see that explained a little more. And I feel like such a hypocrite saying this because, we're both fans of Zack Snyder and said, I'm like, not everything needs to be spoon fed to you. I agree with that, but that's the other extreme is not good either, where it's like you have to infer all these different things. You need somewhere kind of in the middle. And I guess it's just to me, I think for me, the third act is if a lot of it worked really. How do I explain this? Essentially, it's like the best act and the worst act at the same time. Is what I feel like about the third act. Is like there's so much stuff that's like so cool, and there's so much stuff that doesn't work. It's like there's like too many illusions. Like there's too many fake outs for me. It's like at first it's.
I hear what you're saying there. Yeah, there was a lot of reveals on the same thing, and like we were kind of talking about earlier, a lot of one-ups, where it was like, oh no, you're an illusion, but wait, you're an illusion of the illusion that you thought was an illusion, and guess what, at the very mid-credit scene, this was an illusion of that illusion of this illusion, so everything that you just saw was an illusion, including the first three illusions that you just got revealed the truth of, which was also an illusion.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. What it made me think is like when I was walking out of that movie theater, like all those illusions, I was like wondering, wait, is this real? Am I real? Like I even texted you after that. Like I'm confused. Is this really real? Am I really at the grocery store looking for Mother's Day stuff right now? Is that like actually happening, or am I in some sort of illusion? Just because, just the way like all the just. Yeah, it's kind of like, I guess what Red Hood Outlaw says. It's like a dream within a dream. And there's only so many times you want to do that to your audience because you want to have some stuff be real.
Yeah. And I think where, in a way, Inception was successful because I'm guessing that's where Red Hooded Outlaw was kind of talking about a dream within a dream. Is they kind of gave you breathers, right? They kind of give you a moment to decompress, take in the information because they're building this world. And in this film, it was just kind of go, 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 illusion, 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 nothing. It was like being tense the entire time, shaking because you couldn't quite, every time there was a reveal, that in itself wasn't the truth. There was another reveal on its way to reveal something else. It was kind of crazy and mind bending that way. Which I could see how that may have been too much for the audience. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess it was just like too much for me. And then like all of a sudden, it's just like all of a sudden, I guess Minnie's just powerful enough, and she just makes all the hypnotics kill each other. Like that,
which is also kind of like very, like, I mean, in a way, think about that. They literally had their daughter murder all these people, and did it with a smile on their face. It was kind of an interesting I mean, in a way, the very thing that they didn't want her to become, they made her,
Yeah.
or they gave her this opportunity to become that, which is why I think if there were to ever be a sequel, it would be very interesting to see how they would kind of expand upon that, because that was the whole reason of hiding her. They didn't want her to become this weapon for the government, but because she was this all-powerful weapon, she was hunted down, and her parents were basically puppets to this organization under Del Rey, all for them to lead all these hypnotics into a trap so that she could become the weapon that they all didn't want her to be and kill them all. It's in a way, it's kind of an interesting narrative. I'm not sure where they're going with that. But hopefully one day, I don't know, maybe they'll explain it.
So Trey, you said something about killing with a smile on their face. You know what? How many of the Zack Snyder aunties would say that Zack Snyder rubbed off too much on Ben Affleck? Because they love making it seem like Zack Snyder does stuff like that.
Well, I mean,
we know better, but
in this case, Zach has nothing to do with that. This is all Robert Rodriguez and Max Borenstein, who's done some. Max Borenstein is a really great writer. He's done a lot of the MonsterVerse films. I think he also handled World War Z, if I recall. So, a lot of good people behind the mind and the story. What's up, Super Broke? Of this film. It was, it was, like I said, a very cool concept that maybe could have used a person who could think on that high level, like Christopher Nolan, to execute it correctly. But instead, this ended up being just a very nice, it was almost like a parody of a good Nolan mind-bending film. But I don't mean that in a bad way. That doesn't mean this was a horrible film at all. It was not a horrible film. It was just an amazing idea that wasn't quite done to perfection, I think, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just, again, kind of just say with, especially like the third act didn't really do like that. What it really needed to do which was really like have it all kind of make sense to the audience. And I think that's kind of like my biggest issue with the third act. You see all this cool stuff, and then you see all this stuff that doesn't make sense. I mean, so I do want to kind of touch on what you said about the daughter. I think, and that's something I think that would be really good. I guess, maybe we'll say in the, actually, since we're already talking about this, because, one thing I will say is that there is a difference between having to use your powers to defend yourself and having to use your powers for personal gain. Del Rey was going to have Minnie do all this stuff for essentially would have been personal gain, but what Rourke and Cruz were doing was essentially to use it so they could just live. So,
in a way, though, couldn't she, if she was seriously so powerful that even Del Rey feared her in a way and wanted to be her teacher so that he could control her, right? And have her as his weapon for, like you said, his personal gain. But in a way, like if she was really so powerful, couldn't she have thrown them all in a simulation? Everyone on that in that Hypnotic crew, sent them on a simulation that completely erases their mind of her and her family. Did they all have to die? And that's where I say, I wonder if Del Rey's character is truly so powerful that he allowed it and almost pushed this moment to happen just to see if she could do it, if she could pull it off. And that's where I think the sequel should go. I think the sequel should go where her power is too great for Danny Rourke and Diana Cruz's character to control, and that she is becoming the weapon that she wants because Del Rey is creating this path, this illusion for her to become, influencing her to be defensive on the offensive way to killing everyone, basically.
Oh, that's actually a good point. Yeah. I guess the only thing I will say, though, is that in terms of if she's so powerful, why did she have to kill them? The way I kind of see it is that a simulation, eventually the Hypnotics could have broken out of that. They can't break out of death.
I mean, there's one thing to be said, though, that clearly the rest of the Hypnotics crew, they're kind of they're like level entry Hypnotics, right? They're you can tell they're not nearly as powerful as Diana Cruz, Danny Rooks, or even Del Rey's character. They're kind of they're the ants. They're the ant soldiers. There's the queen, and they're the worker ants, basically.
Oh, Corey, just so you know, this is a spoiler review. We put it in the title, so if you got spoiled, I'm sorry. That's your
He
own
might not.
fault.
He might not carry it. It's not in his theater, unfortunately. It's the unfortunate part of being in a town with only one small theater. which that was the thing. Out of curiosity, at any point are we going to talk about the box office? I didn't know if that was a topic for you. We can finish the sequel setup first. I was just curious.
I'll add that as a topic. That would actually be that's actually a good one to talk about. We'll put that right here. Yeah, but so good. It's where I want it to be. Okay. So anyway, I guess sequel setup is that I think there's so much potential for a sequel to set up. Is like these moral dilemmas that they're in. Is that, wondering if they are becoming like Del Rey, where they had Minnie kill these people. Because Del Rey is out there, and with that mid-credits scene, you saw the foster dad is the one who's dead, and Del Rey is alive.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much more that they can do with this sequel. Is just the fact that now that because here's what this movie has the advantage of. The sequel has the advantage of now is that all this stuff is already explained. So the sequel doesn't have to go into that again. Now you can just kind of jump straight into what's going on right now. Is that you have this whole, you have this powerful hypnotic that's out there trying to get the Rourkes, and which, so I just have this thought. What if this movie was essentially like Amazing Spider-Man 2, meant to set up the sequel? That's what I'm wondering now, just which is what we're talking about. This thought just occurred to me. It's like, oh shit, they made this movie was intended to get the sequel going.
Interesting. Personally, where I would love to see them go, I think a sequel without question needs to happen. But I think it would be smart for them to actually do a prequel first and maybe start it where you have Del Rey as basically an origin story of Del Rey. Show us his character learning his power, getting, the indoctrination of being, into the government, basically kidnapping him and using him to enhance his powers, and then to, get basically it's almost like the mutant story, right? Where like the first mutant discovers himself, and then he tries to, it's like Magneto, where he sees how the government is training these people and hates them because of their power. And it's like, why am I listening to you? You can't control me. In my mind, you're only controlling me because you're the big bad government, right? It's just like, but what if I break out and, unleash hell, basically? I would love to see maybe an early story of Del Rey, and they could literally end it with, Danny Rook and Diana Cruz getting recruited into this group, and kind of their love story at the end or something like that. But for the sequel, I would love the idea, and I thought about this, where I think, yes, they should play around with this craziness, power that is almost uncontrollable for Minnie, and her parents are trying to in a way control her, but like to have her learn her powers for the right reason. But I think where the twist would come in is that throughout this entire sequel film, where we're still getting Del Rey's character hunting them, but I think the government should now get involved to where they're trying to get her as well. I think the cool reveal at the end of the sequel is that Danny Rook's character and Diana Cruz have been dead for a while, that they were killed a long time ago, and that Del Rey's character put her in a simulation of learning and enhancing her powers from her parents, which is actually the lessons that he was giving her, to make it easier for her to accept them unless if he was trying to give her those lessons, she wouldn't accept them because he's the bad guy. But if her parents were giving her the lessons and the training to enhance her powers, she'd be more accepting of them. So I love the idea of because let's be honest, Ben Affleck is probably expensive. They're probably going to cut the budget down because it's not doing hot in the box office. So I think just to have him maybe at least in a little bit in the beginning, and to have this reveal that her parents were never there in the sequel, they've been dead, and she's just been in this training simulation with Del Rey's character. I think that would be just oh my God, crazy. But I blew it for you guys. Sorry. Don't take my ideal, Robert Rodriguez. Or take it. Just give me credit.
The only thing I'll say about that is that it's kind of like what I had with the first movies, that there were too many twists and there was too much of that for the audience. I would worry about that being, again, too much more for the audience. It's like, oh, the whole movie was fake and the whole half of this second movie was fake. And that's one thing I'm hoping that the sequel does better, is that they give us those breathing moments that you talked about that Inception had. It's it's just time to sit down, just process what's happening. And I think the sequel, there's so much potential for a sequel to happen. And just seeing, again, kind of exploring that moral dilemma of Rourke and Cruz with what they did with Minnie. Just seeing, and what you're talking about with Del Rey using the government. I mean, he can do that. Well, the thing about, I guess now he's the only hypnotic, I guess. And one thing is, he can just hypnotize anyone to just do what he wants, essentially. He can hypnotize police officers. He can hypnotize the frickin' president if he wants to. And the U.S. Army. He could send, all those people now after Rourke, Cruz, and Minnie. And one thing I would love about that, though, too, is now here's this dilemma. The hypnotics mostly were acting out of their own free will, at least that we know of. But these people wouldn't be. How many innocent people would they be willing to kill to protect their daughter? Because there's a difference between killing a guilty person and killing an innocent person. So there's so many different, and that's what I love about it. It's you have a direction, I have a direction. There's so many different directions that they can go with the sequel. And I think I guess kind of the main things, though, is they need to make the runtime longer. They need to give the audience the time to breathe. And they need to not do a dick measuring contest at the end with how many times people can one-up each other, because that's just too much for the audience. I need some things to be real once in a while. I know that seems weird, but I need some...
You need some normalcy to, rather than it's always gotcha. No, I gotcha. No, I gotcha. It's, I completely hear where you're coming from with that.
Exactly. And I just want to catch up with the chat a little bit before we move on to our... Yep, so it's called Clock Tower, likes the ideas. Corey says pay up. Oh, a lot of people want you to be the writer of Hypnotic, too.
Trevor H.
Although, I'm surprised that this person agrees with you.
Hashtag make Trey a writer. Corey just said make Trey a writer. He's not saying of Hypnotic too. He's just please write anything but Hypnotic too.
Yeah, just saying AI can't come up with this shit. Yep, you're right. And so, which is why I'm saying to whoever is in charge of ending the strike, give the writers what they want. Please, AI can't substitute. I want movies and shows to come back. So
I didn't realize AI was becoming such a big problem. I heard about the writer strike and I was like, oh yeah, writers always need to get paid a little more. because without them, there is no damn movie. And then it was like when I heard a main reason was like AI, I was like, wait, what? Like, who has made a film that was made completely by AI in terms of the story? Like, I would love to know that. Does anyone know? Like, I'm not too worried about it.
I think the issue is they're trying to stop it while it's a smaller problem. Because think about it, like you don't want to wait till AI makes a whole movie. You want to stop it before it gets that powerful. It's easier to squash a small monster than squash a big monster.
Are you worried about Skynet?
To be honest, yeah, I am very. I mean, I don't want to get too far into this because this is a whole nother topic, but
just the way you said "yeah" made me think of Keanu Reeves and John Wick. Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of just say, we're doomed if we don't stop AI. That's all. I'll get to that for now.
I say continue AI. I want Skynet. That'd be a fun way to live. Well, I'll be your John Connor.
So if you think Skynet, though, is as evil as a villain as
No, I think Del Rey's is a nice guy. I think he's cool. I don't see what people hated him for.
You give Corey and I a hard time for siding with actual good guys like Anakin Skywalker. And here you are trying to defend Del Rey.
I mean, he's trying to stick it to the man, stick it to the government. Why would I be against this? No, I mean, he obviously he's a pretty bad dude. But when you think about like they try to make him out as a pretty big villain in the first and middle act because he's supposedly killing all these people. But the twist is he hasn't killed anyone. He's put them all through a simulation other than at the very end. He does kill someone at the very end. But I think about that is that she, Minnie literally killed far more people in this movie that we saw than Del Rey's character.
Yeah, that is a good point, but what are your thoughts of Del Rey though as a character? Like that character, that villain's motivations.
His motivation was a little confusing because to me it was more of like, what's the purpose of Minnie's, of having control of Minnie simply because she's a powerful hypnotic? Like, aren't you the most powerful hypnotic? Why do you fear this young hypnotic and need control of her powers? And that's where I think it would be smart to do a prequel before they did a sequel, build up Del Rey's character, give us motivation, give us the reason, and honestly make him an even more complex character. William Fletcher is like such an incredible actor that I would love to see, and they wouldn't even need to pick William Fletcher, and maybe he can be the third act of the prequel movie of, as it ages through his life. But I would love to see them build Darth Del Rey. Yes, Corey, you Sith sympathizer, you would love Del Rey. But you would probably like Ben Affleck more because Ben Affleck had his daughter completely massacre everyone. But I think it'd be smart to kind of give us the why of his character. We know he didn't like listening to the government. At some point, it clicked in his mind that said, why am I listening to people who honestly can't control me? I can control them. And to see that he kind of created a secret organization, you brought up a great point, Batman. Like, why did he just create a secret organization? Why did he not like hypnotize the president and like made everything happen the way he wanted it to happen? Where to me, it was kind of like one of those things where, yes, that is kind of a limitation of the story writing. What do they call it? Not plot holes. The plot shielding? No, plot armor. I think it's plot.
Yeah,
armor.
plot armor. Yeah, plot armor.
That's kind of like the plot armor of this film, where if you have someone this powerful who can do all these things, why is he thinking so small? So that's where I kind of like I want to understand his character more. I've always been fascinated with the villains, right? Like what's their why? What's their reasoning? General Zod in Man of Steel is such a brilliantly well-written villain because the truth is General Zod is not really a villain. You know, in his own way, he's just trying to do what is right for his people. Like you guys were talking about during your Man of Steel discussion with Super Bro Corey last week. Like
Yeah,
he's
last week.
such a gray, complex character because to us, Earthlings, humans, yeah, General Zod is the villain. He's the bad guy. He's trying to kill us all. But to a Kryptonian, he's the hero of this story. He's the one trying to save them all at any means necessary. It's a species on the brink of extinction. And you know, the betrayal they must feel from Kal-El. I love that concept of this character that if we didn't have the views or the perception from our end, how is this character complex? How is he a villain? When you have just a character that's just blatantly a villain, sometimes that can be interesting if he's done well, like the Joker, like because the Joker, while his humor is twisted and makes it's funny because it makes sense and he's not wrong on some things, he is a bad dude and he's messed up and does things that are just god awful. But here is a character, Del Rain, where he at all costs he tried to avoid killing people. In fact, he made it an illusion to not kill them, but to make it look like a killing so that he could push this little mouse through the maze to get to the cheese, you know? And it wasn't until the very end that we finally saw him kill somebody. So to me, it's kind of like, why was he so hesitant to really avoid the push? Like why didn't he put Danny Rourke's character through torture, through interrogation, some like going all the way to like get the answers he needed to really try to break his mind? Instead, he tried a simulation, the same simulation, which is the definition of insanity almost 12 freaking times to see if he could break the walls and get to the answer that he was looking for. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of reservation in his villain, you know, which is interesting. It's an interesting way to write a villain character because usually they're willing to go the extra mile immediately, and that's the difference usually between the hero and the villain.
Yeah, and I kind of like what you said about like like the whole villains, like that moral gray area. I even said in my Man of Steel review, those are some of the best villains. But sometimes, once in a while, you need a villain who's just a villain. Once in a while, you do need it. Not everyone needs to be morally gray, but I feel like they didn't really explore what Del Rain was. Because on one hand, you're right, bring up this good point, is that he didn't really kill people, but his motivation still seemed, from what they're showing, kind of selfish. But then you wonder, though, why didn't he kill, if he was really this evil person, why not just kill Minnie as a baby? He could have done that. He could have killed this baby before she could have done anything. So it's just...
Which I think explains, it's the interesting part of why does he need her so bad? Why does he need Minnie? What's his goal? Maybe there's something he can't do unless if he has someone who's more powerful than him achieve his mission. So what's his mission? And we never really, unless if I missed it, we never really got an answer to what his mission and end goal, even after he gets Minnie, you know, other than we understand that they were worried that Del Rain was going to make Minnie kill a lot of people. So who's he going to kill? Does he still work for the government or is he on his own? It sounds like he kind of went rogue, you know? I don't know. There's a lot of answers.
Because the thing is, they made it seem like him going rogue was part of the simulation, because it seemed like when he woke up, they made it feel like it was still a branch of the government. I don't see. That's where I think it kind of benefited. Again, I keep circling back to this. They needed more time to explain some of the stuff, how some of the stuff actually works, because they just kind of explain, no, he's a villain who would have not given Minnie a normal life, who would have been essentially his weapon to take over. But again, he doesn't need to have powerful hypnotics. He just needs to be the most powerful of everyone. That's it. Because again, as I said before, if no one else is hypnotic but him, he can control the world. Everyone can do what he says. He can have the U.S. just nuke all the other countries in the world if he wants to.
Which is why I find it fascinating. This is where he kind of is like a Magneto character. In a way, he very much is Magneto, right? He was, indoctrinated into the government, or in this case, the Nazis took Magneto from a boy and turned him into the weapon that he is. And here it's the government turning Dale Rain's character into the weapon that he is. But rather than deciding, when he decides to go rogue from the government, rather than deciding to just kill everyone and to kill the others like him so that he can remain on top, he creates a group where they all work together, to where Danny Rourke and Diana Cruz's character, they become a team, a family, and they build a relationship, and they have all this resources at their disposal. So that's where I say we need a story about Dale Rain to explain his why, And
something you just kind of said right there. You said they viewed the other hypnotics as his family. But if that's the case, he wouldn't want to sacrifice them so quickly. If he is that morally complex character who does somewhat care about the other hypnotics, why would he sacrifice them just for a test? So that's why I'm thinking he is, in a way, I don't know. I'm still leaning to this guy is pure evil in that he does want control, but it just felt like, to me, his motivations just were not clear enough. And it kills me because William Fletcher did such a good job. I think he did a great job in this movie. The actor did, but
yeah, he's a wonderful actor, and it was good to see him. It's been a while since we've seen him and Ben Affleck in a movie together. The last time I recalled them in a movie together was Armageddon, which I think that was 2000 or 1999 when that film came out. So insane. It's literally been over 20 years.
What was the movie called again, you said?
Armageddon.
Armageddon, okay.
Yeah, with Bruce Willis, Liv Tyler, Ben Affleck, Michael Clark Duncan was in it. Owen Wilson's in it. There's a Billy Bob Thornton's in it. There's so many actors in it. I think that was done by Michael Bay. I think Michael Bay did that one.
Okay, so many Ben Affleck movies I actually haven't seen yet. So many I want to see.
You haven't seen Armageddon?
No.
Bro, oh man, Armageddon is underrated. I think what happened is, unfortunately, it came out when they were making a lot of asteroid movies, like Deep Impact. I think just came out before it with Morgan Freeman, and that it was kind of a similar concept where this asteroid's going to hit Earth, and they were sending out astronauts to go blow it up, basically. So I think it suffered from kind of this similar concept, but both films are great for their own reasons,
One thing
you might have to do an Armageddon watch party. That'd be dope.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to. I do want to see again. I want to see all these different Ben Affleck movies. But I have to ask, was Del Rain that bank manager from The Dark Knight, the one who worked?
He was,
with that
yeah.
mob? Okay, I thought he looked familiar. I knew he was also in Prison Break too.
Oh, well, I haven't finished that show, but yeah, I mean, he's a brilliant actor, very underrated for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where the strongest aspect of that villain comes from. Not so much from the writing, but from the actor's portrayal. Again, the motivations were not very clear. Was he a complex villain who morally gray, or was he pure evil? Because it doesn't work for me either way, because either if he's morally gray, I don't see him being so quick to sacrifice people. If he's pure evil, there are definitely other ways he could have gotten a more powerful hypnotic. And again, this is going to be very dark. What I'm thinking too is that if you wanted, let's say he wanted an heir, he's a powerful hypnotic too. He could have hypnotize someone to a female hypnotic to have a kid with him.
Kind of like the Emperor in a way. I mean, we're still wondering who the Emperor slept with to make, the father of Rey.
That was a clone. The father is a clone. That's what I read somewhere.
The father's a clone?
Like the father of Rey.
Yeah.
Like Palpatine's son is actually
That's
like his clone.
Stupid.
Yeah, so he didn't. Well, hey, at least he didn't sleep with anyone. But I'm just saying that Del Rey, it's like there are definitely more efficient ways he could have done this if he is this pure evil person and if he's morally great. So I think that's kind of the summarizer for me. That's why it doesn't work for me. That's why I say to summarize this, the actor was great. The writing for it was not so much. It's kind of one of those, and I go back and forth. I wonder if it would have been better if it was just this, and we maybe can get to this later on, but I'm wondering if it would have been better if it was just this bank heist film where Daniel O'Rourke was actually a detective and he was just a simple bank robber trying to make some money. That's what I wonder. I question that, honestly, if it would have, at least the motivations would have been clearer. So hopefully the sequel can set that up. But what about this character? Diana Cruz.
Alice Braga, she's amazing. She's done films with Robert Rodriguez before. The one that hits to mind the most is Predators, and I loved her in that. She's a badass. Every role she's done, I just thought she brings a vulnerability, but yet she's in a way she's kind of like a Latina Wonder Woman. You know, you just don't mess with her. She kicks ass in every movie I've seen her in. And I personally dug the twist of her character. It was a bit interesting of how they handled it or how they revealed it. I felt like it was a little too quick. Like I felt like it would have been nice if they created a little more of a struggle of her getting back to remembering her sacrifice, her, you know, just the remembrance of the plan that her and her husband set to protect their daughter, to kind of create this moment of like, is she going to kill him? Is she not? You know, is she going to remember in time? And instead, when they revealed it, it was kind of like, oh, everything's good now. And now I'm going to kill everybody. You know, I didn't quite like that. Hey, Trey, I just got 5 words for you. Do it, Gray. Do it. If you could say those 5 words from that movie, Armageddon, no, Corey's going to look it up. He's going to look it up.
Yeah, he probably was.
He's going to look it up.
Super Bro Corey, bit of a cheater.
Yep.
I guess what can I say for Diana Cruz is that I like both versions of the character. I like the version of the character where she was just like this person on the run, trying to survive at this point, and the version of the character who was dedicated to the Hypnotics and willing to sacrifice her daughter. And I guess as well as like the mom, the loving mom. Just, I kind of agree with what you said. Like, and again, it kind of what I think of her character in a way, a lot like Game of Thrones season 8. I liked what they did with her character, but the path to getting there was kind of clunky. Like, I followed it. It wasn't like Del Rey's character where I'm just like, what the heck is going on with him? Like, I got it. It was pretty simple with her, is that she simply forgot who she was to hide her daughter, but unfortunately that made her a villain working for Del Rey. So, and again, I think they did the twist with her character very well, though. I think, you know, they kind of slowly like built the chemistry up between her and Rourke slowly, so that you kind of get that vibe that there is something going on between them. And again, it's kind of like Minnie's character. They kind of played with the hair color a little bit. They made her look like a white blonde, like a blonde Caucasian woman, and then like slowly changing her into like this dark-haired Latino woman. So I think, I don't know, they did a really good job with the character. And you're right, and the actress, again, another great female badass character, because I think some of my favorite characters in any kind of movie are female badasses. Females who are just good, badass on their own, not that CW stuff where it's like they're good at everything magically because they're the female character, but she just really seemed like a good, well-written character. And which okay, these are the 5 words that Corey wants to say. Damn, glad to see you, boy.
That's 6.
Damn.
And Corey, you're not wrong. That is
you.
a quote in the movie, but it's "I'll never do that again."
Yep. Okay, well, Corey, I guess there's not going to be a watch party now. So
get off the nuclear warhead. Sorry, Corey, we can't ruin this for Batman. He's gonna have to join us for the watch party.
Yeah, I'll be there for the watch party. I'll definitely come and check. I'll see that movie with you.
If it came out in 1998, is that 25-year anniversary? Yeah. Oh, we're totally doing a watch party, bro.
Wait, hold on. Let me check that math. Okay, so I'm getting my calculator out. 2023 minus 1998 is 25. Okay, you're right. It's 25 year.
You trying to call me on math, son? Math, son?
No, not right after this because it'll be late and we'll talk about this for what's coming up, but I'm going to be getting up early tomorrow, so we'll get into that later on. But anyway, that thing when you do a show with the chat, you read the chat and then you have to kind of get back to where you were. But overall, I think they did a really good job. I like where they went with Diana Cruz's character, but you're right, the shifts were too sudden for me. Like, I like that she was a very capable woman in the simulation who was able to kind of really. I felt like she could really get by on her own.
Yeah.
And then
sorry. I was just going to say, I think the issue with her character, or at least how, and I know you kind of talked about this earlier with the third act, is that at the end, you didn't like, there's this big battle that's about to happen, and yet you never worried about the heroes of our character. You never worried about the protagonists. You didn't think anyone was going to die because it was like that moment that like, oh, we have Superman here, you know, like everything's fine. We're not going to lose if we have Superman here. But in this case, it was Supergirl, you know,
like Justice League.
Right. Yeah. You know, and it was just one of those scenes where like you had the big guns and you got Ben Affleck smiling. You have Alice Brega's character smiling, and she just massacring everyone because she's just so powerful. There was no tension. There was no, is this going to work out? It was literally, 10 minutes of the third act just being like, oh, we've won this. We're just watching us win nonstop right now. Which was, I felt like a missed opportunity to kind of give us that, oh man, this family tension. We just got the family back together. Are they going to be pulled apart? Are we going to lose someone here? And instead they just kind of like, well, victory, you know?
Yeah. And I know I'm like a broken record with this. I know, but this would have been solved with a longer run time. I keep saying this over and over again, and I feel like I shouldn't have to, but the fact that so many issues could be resolved by that. Because, like, I guess kind of like the thing is, like, they show her at first, like, I just, like, wonder, like, how much of it was real and, like, how much of it wasn't. Like, because, they were fighting with, like, with any normal parents. Like, they don't always agree on what's best for their children. Like, you have the mom's idea, you have the dad's idea. And at first, like, at a certain point, you feel like, the dad wants their daughter to have a normal life. The mom wants the child to explore her gifts. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, no, we both actually agreed that this was bad. And it's just, and again, the idea was good, but it just, again, it just was too quick. It was too fast paced. That's why I say it's like the Game of Thrones season 8. The idea with her was great. Where she ended up was great, but it sped up too fast. It was too sudden shifts.
I'm glad you and I had like similar issues, because I was worried Sarah, like I said, Sarah loved it so much that I was kind of like thrown off by how much she liked it, and like trying to decide, did I not have, like, were my issues manipulated or by myself, like by my own expectations? Because sometimes that's the issues, right? Like some of these trailers are so awesome that you set these high expectations because of the hype that you build around it. I remember the first time I watched the trailer, that I was like, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing film. This is going to be like one of my top 5 most hyped films of this year. And then I saw it and I was like, didn't quite do it for me the way I thought it was going to. And honestly, some good telltale signs that was probably going to be the case. The fact that they released a trailer like a month before the movie came out, that's usually not a good sign that they didn't promote the hell out of this movie. And I know we'll talk about that part when we get to the box office, but it was the concept. I know I've said this a lot in my spoiler free review. The concept was insanely cool. Like such a cool idea that it's almost an idea that it would be difficult to hit it on the nail and do it perfectly because it's so wild of an idea. Where my score, when I gave it a 7.1, majority of that went into, I love the concept. I love where they could go with this if they really do expand upon it. But really, that's where my score was simply the concept. If I talk about execution, I would say the execution was like a C minus, maybe a D plus. But what saved the film in a way was the actors they got. They got some damn good actors in this film. Ben Affleck, Alice Braga, William Fletchner. They even had, oh God, what's his name? He played Rorschach, Jackie Haley. Is it Jackie Haley? Jackie Earl Haley? Yes.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I'm very bad with a lot of these names. I know I make fun of you for Alderaan a lot, but I do suck at a lot of these actors and characters.
Say, here's what you did for me. Now I never forget Alderaan.
But so you mentioned actors, you mentioned Ben Affleck. So like Daniel Rourke, like let's talk about his character. Like what'd you what'd you think about his character?
What I love, and it was almost and it's weird because like I was like, it was almost comedic, but the reason why I say it was almost comedic is that Ben Affleck played such a classic detective, cynical, very just kind of short with his words, and kind of it kind of gave you a Batman vibe as well, where he just kind of is brooding all the time. And they always kind of has that kind of detectiveness, that you would see like in the 50s films. But I dug that because in a way, like that's exactly what you wanted from it. You wanted kind of that old school detective that's on this mission to figure out the secret that is leading this movie forward. So I dug it. Ben Affleck was easily the best part of this film, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the big standout for me is, again, obviously we're both huge Ben Affleck fans, as we both love his Batman. But I think, again, I love how Ben Affleck portrays all the different characters he plays. When he plays like the regular detective Daniel Rourke, he is kind of like that classic sassy detective, the one who knows, like, the classic story where they disobey the orders and they go after, they make the move that they shouldn't make. They go after the bad guy without backup. That classic story. He does that very well. And the naive person has all this hypnotic stuff. That's such BS. To the protective dad who is an expert of this hypnotic stuff and wants to do what's best for his daughter. That's like, all those things work. He does a really good job of playing all those different characters. Or
wonderful point. And I was just thinking that, like, he did a great job transitioning throughout the movie and seeing, in a way, it was character growth, but it was actually character transformation, because in his illusion in the beginning, he's a detective, and then he's a man on the run with, everyone thinking he's the criminal. Because that's the illusion that Del Rain made. And now he's actually a hypnotic and a father who's trying to protect his daughter. There were so many different versions of the Danny Rourke that he had to play. It was almost like, what do they call it with multiple personalities?
Not schizophrenia.
Schizophrenic? Is it schizophrenic?
No, that's like if
I
you
don't
think
know.
everyone's against you.
Oh, well, either way, he had to play multiple personalities
Split
in one
personality.
film.
Maybe
Yeah, in a way. And he nailed each character in a wonderful way. And I dug it. He probably had a lot of fun with this film simply because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think to me the big highlight of this movie is Ben Affleck's character. He's just such a great job doing all these different things. I mean, and I felt like one thing, and I think it's because he was the main character, so we saw like most of the limited screen time went towards his character development. Like, I had a lot of issues with like the character motivations for all these other characters, but his was perfect. Like,
His was very well defined throughout the movie.
Like I followed it throughout. Like I followed that transition, no problem. He's the detective who's trying to do his job, to the guy who's trying to find the guy who kidnapped his daughter, to the guy who's trying to now hide his daughter from these people. Like, I followed that. None of the transitions with himself felt forced, and I think because they didn't do too many twists with him compared to these other characters. It wasn't like Ben Affleck was, I guess because he's the main character, we're always going to root for him. We're always going to root for what he wants. Whereas like Diana Cruz's character, or Diana Cruz, it's like we're with her because she's siding with Rourke. We're against her because now she's against Rourke. But no, wait, she's actually for Rourke. Because Rourke is like the main character, we're going to side with him no matter what. So I think that's kind of one big advantage too that his character had, is that with all the twists, whatever he thinks is right is what the audience is going to think as right. So I think that's one advantage his character kind of had over the others, and why the shorter runtime and some of these messy rules didn't affect his character so much.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And then I guess another character who, anything else you want to kind of say on Rourke?
No, I think I liked his character. I hope that we see Ben Affleck play more of these kind of fun detective noir style kind of things. I dug it. He's very good at that. Obviously, he did Batman. He's done other things like The Town. He's very good in these types of roles. Even though he can do other stuff, clearly he can be comedic and he can be a dramatic role. And like even in Air, he's wonderful in Air. And I can't wait to see where they go with this next with his character if it does continue.
Yeah, I think there's so much potential they can do with his character, and also you said Detective Noir. That's a Batman story, isn't it?
Detective Noir?
Yeah.
There is a Batman Detective Noir comic, yes.
So it's just kind of funny, you said Detective Noir for Ben Affleck, Batman.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why maybe that was Robert Rodriguez's kind of influence of why he chose Ben Affleck for this role, is that he could do that role. But he also, obviously, Ben Affleck is a father already, so he could easily connect with the character in the third act, even though he's on the run in the second act. I mean, there's so many things that he was able to kind of have fun with in this movie, which was cool to see.
And I guess one thing that also kind of made it believable with Ben Affleck's character, like being so protective of his children, is that just some stuff you've seen in real life. Just like on social media, just when you follow Ben Affleck, you really get the vibe that he is really that protective father of his kids. There was one video that leaked where, how like celebrities are always trying to bother celebrities. They don't let them have a life.
Oh, the paparazzi.
Not just paparazzi sometimes, but just regular people too, who not necessarily taking a picture, but I guess there was a camera, so there was a paparazzi in there. But there was like one video where like he's trying to talk to Ben Affleck's actual daughter, like she's in the car locked up, and then Ben Affleck normally he doesn't want to talk to these people, but when it was his kid, he just got out of the car. He's like, "Hey, look, you can talk to me, but don't talk to my kid." and just like, and I think, seeing that video just kind of really, I put that was like in my mind in this movie because it was that exact same type of scenario. Just the way he's that big pop up there, that big guy who will do anything to protect his daughter, even if it means essentially killing a bunch of people. Because as a parent, your child comes first. Like, that's the big thing, is that when you're a parent, nothing else matters. You will blow up a whole freaking country for your child's safety. Bit of dark humor.
You would do. I would say, so long, kid. I can make more.
But Freya, thanks for stopping by. And okay, this is what I hate about StreamYard. It's like Rhea put like some emoji, but I literally see the name of the emoji, not the actual emoji itself. Gotta see if I can actually see it on actual YouTube. And okay, yeah, there we go. I see the emoji right there, but it literally says face fushy wide eyes. Just saying, StreamYard, you could fix some stuff like that. But yeah, that's like another thing that just kind of popped in my head real quickly for Ben Affleck. It's just that personal life of his, just what you see on social media, just really, really kind of made it more believable, like even more believable in his character, is to protect none other than his daughter, Minnie. I guess, you don't see a lot of her, but what did you think about like her character in this movie?
Cool. Like I said, I think if they were to do a sequel, she should be the main character. She should be the main protagonist, or antagonist in a way, if they want to go that route. I think she should be clearly the focus in the sequel.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like we didn't get a lot of her, but I feel like in this movie you didn't really need to get a lot of her. Like, I mostly got the gist of it. She was a powerful hypnotic. She was a daughter of 2 hypnotics, therefore she's a powerful hypnotic. They went to hide her. And, well, you talked about a prequel. I would love to see a prequel, or I don't know if this counts as a prequel or what they call a midquel, where like the movie takes place during the film. So like Lion King 1.5. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, and I hate it.
That's a midquel, though. That's basically what they call a midquel, because it takes place during Lion King.
Interesting. I think that gets to be a difficult film to make, because essentially it's you kind of get stuck in a realm where you can't go outside the parameters of what happens during that film to where it doesn't make sense. I think that her film as a midquel would be like a sitcom, hanging out with the foster parents. Like, please stop doing that.
I guess, okay, maybe they could do like a sequel with like a flashback or something. Just, I would like to see that time, like her training on that farm. I guess I would want to, maybe they could do a sequel where they flash back to that time, so that you get like
get some time frame with that, because maybe she'll have issues with her parents from leaving. I mean, I think for her age, I think, what was she, 7 years old when her dad left her with those foster parents? So I mean, that's probably very confusing for that child. I don't see any child truly understanding that and being okay with that. I think there would be some resentment, and maybe they can play with that idea in the sequel.
Yeah, I think there's so much potential for her in the sequel. I mean, again, in this movie, I feel like they did exactly what they needed to do with her, and I think there's a lot of more room for growth with her character in the sequel if they do that. But we'll almost get to. But one thing I kind of want to talk about, I guess we kind of talked about this throughout, but I guess one thing you said in your spoiler-free review is that you talked about the cinematography, that you had some issues with that. Now that you're in your now that we're spoiler-free, go all out on that. Like, what, I guess, was your issue specifically with?
Some of it just wasn't cinematically, visually stunning. That, I mean, this concept, this idea that people can make illusions in your mind. as bad as it sounds, we've seen that before. That concept isn't new. I mean, as we saw at Inception, and when you have a film like Inception, that kind of becomes your expectation, Tenet, all these scenes that are mind bending in a way, or Now You See Me, even to give it something that's not Christopher Nolan. When you see something that visually is not natural and it really plays with your concept of physics and just how none of that matters anymore because it's all illusions. You have a certain expectation, what looks good, and now you have seen something that's not as good. And that's the issue I had with it, is that it immediately to me was not executed as well as I've seen other films. And Robert Rodriguez, there's been films that he's done that I really do like. And there's other films that are kind of like, it's kind of comedic. It's very parody. It's almost like a parody of Quentin Tarantino films. Like a movie that comes to mind is like Death Proof or Planet Terror that he was involved in. And I just noticed the way he uses like zooming in and zooming out of a scene, it just doesn't look smooth. And it took me out of the moment. I know so many people are like, why were you even paying attention to that, Trey? I wasn't. It was the fact that I did catch it, that it bugged me. It was like I wasn't even looking for it, but it would just happen. I'd be like, why did you do that? Like why? Like that didn't look good. Why? Like why? It looked comedic. I couldn't help but kind of laugh because it looked. And I don't want anyone to think that I don't like Robert Rodriguez films. I do. I really liked Predators because he didn't do this a lot with Predators. I just didn't like the story of Predators. I thought it was a cool film other than the story. But just it looked somewhat amateurish in moments. And like I said, and I only think that's the reason because I've seen films that have done the same type of visuals and execute it extremely well. And I didn't think it was executed really well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I do apologize. I know, broken record. It's the runtime. If the runtime was bigger, a lot of some of the stuff just would have been fleshed out more. I guess some of the visual stuff, I guess that you said wouldn't. I get what you're saying with that, but
it could have been the budget too. It was only a $65 million film, and at least $5 million of that is probably going to Ben Affleck, and then probably the entire cast on top of that is another, I don't know, $7 million altogether with the cast and crew. And it gets to the point where maybe you're spending $20 to $30 million on animation and CGI and visuals to where like you're not getting Weta to do that. You're not getting some big studio like Lights and Sound, Lucas Arts and stuff like that. So I have to give it some bit of leeway. Just for me, there were certain styles that I saw and I've seen Robert Rodriguez do in other films where it is a comedic style horror film that I saw him do in this movie, and it took me out of the seriousness of this movie, I guess, if that puts it.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like there were some bit of tone issues now and again. I guess, again, my biggest issue is just the fact of how quickly the movie was. Like, the rules just didn't make sense. Like, what Hypnotics could do. There was just too much left to be desired. For me, it's like, just more of the world of Hypnotics. I guess one big thing is because you made it all a simulation, I want to see how Hypnotics actually act in day-to-day life, in the actual real life. It was a cool twist that they did, but the problem with that is we didn't really get to see Hypnotics in the real world.
It would have been smart to do maybe a flashback of how the government, got these people and what they did with them in their training simulations and stuff like that to learn more about their power. I know we got like a quick flashback, but to to maybe give us a couple more minutes and the Del Rain flashback, to see his journey. But maybe this is all part of the plan. It's one of those scenes where I heard a quote recently from George Lucas that I thought was very fascinating. Like, I did always know this. I know George Lucas wrote, basically 9 episodes from the beginning a long time ago. And he had decided that he wanted to start in the middle. He wanted to start with the middle trilogy because he wanted to get straight into the action and just throw you into the world and not have to do so much explaining. And then he went obviously to the prequel trilogy to help kind of explain and show the tragedy arc of Darth Vader. And this, in a way, it could be exactly like this, where Robert Rodriguez just wanted to throw you into this world so that you get interested in enough to want to see it continue. And he definitely piqued my interest. I hope he piqued the rest of the world's interest, which doesn't look likely.
Yeah, and it's sad because there are some great things about this movie, though. Is that I think the one thing is that the performances were all really great. All the actors: Ben Affleck, Diane Cruz, William Fletcher. How do you say his last name?
Fletchner, I think. Fletchner.
Yeah. Like, just all great actors. Even I like the kid actress who played Minnie. I thought she did pretty decent too. So there's so many great actors, and the concept is just so amazing.
Yeah, like, those are really the highlights that drove this movie.
And again, they did set up so much great potential for a sequel. It just, I guess, is there any other good standouts that you want to kind of say with this movie?
There's some moments of brilliance in terms of cinematography, like and this is where the style of this this form of storytelling, where they create this paranoia. I kept using that word because in a way he really grasped the concept of paranoia. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie was when he gets the call from Del Rain in the bedroom while Diana Cruz's character is taking a shower, and he's just like, "You want to know how powerful I am? Go kill her." And he's like, "I'm not going to do that." Hangs up the phone, and all of a sudden he's like struggling to stop himself. And I loved how they were able to, like, he's gonna like put his hand on the wall, but he sees, one looks back, and then boom, there's a knife there, and that whole filming, that whole cinematography right there, I was like, cool, that's awesome. Clearly that's where Robert Rodriguez really like succeeds, when he does that horror element. He loves that horror stuff. So yeah, there was moments of brilliance that I really enjoyed. Cool concept, a very cool concept that deserves to be hashed out and executed better. Hopefully we get that.
Well, before we move on to box office, let's see, is this comment too far up? But okay, I think it's too far up at this point. But someone basically said release the Rodriguez cuts. I think that would be.
It'd be cool to hear if there is. If there is a 20-minute extra cut, I would say release it. Do it. Which I think, if I recall, he has a few director's cuts, or I think he does unrated editions, but I don't know if this needs an unrated version, but an extended cut would be cool.
Yeah, look, even though I like BVS theatrical cuts, the extended cut did win a lot of people over. So you see what extended cuts can do especially for Ben Affleck movies, right? Again, another parallel right there. So, again, I agree. I think there's a lot of great stuff in this movie. And before we kind of get to the wrap up, let's talk about box office a little bit. And my thing with box office for this movie is the fact that you said it was a $65 million budget.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even have to do that well to get a sequel. $65 million, that would be pretty. You should be able to make your money back just on star power alone.
You would hope, but unfortunately, here's the issue, right? And this is the unfortunate part about Hollywood, and I hope they don't like take this as a reconfirming their thoughts about how Hollywood should be run, which is just rehash the same ideas and the same franchises over and over again, reboot the hell out of them to where people just hate it. What I give this movie credit for, it's an original idea. While it is a bit of a concept that we've seen with other films, it was still an original idea. It was an original world building that Robert Rodriguez was doing. So that's why I give it a lot of credit, and I hope it continues. But they didn't really market this film, and the fact it doesn't help when the studio Ketchup Entertainment was only able to get this movie for opening weekend in about 2000, I think it was 2,100 theaters. So most theaters Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or what was the other? Super Mario Brothers, that got released in 4,400 theaters. So double of what this movie got. So right there, you're not setting this movie up for success, with box office. So unfortunately for its opening weekend, it only pulled in about $2.4 million, which was, and this is the other thing that is kind of unfair. But of course, the trades and the articles are coming out oh, it's Robert Rodriguez's and Ben Affleck's worst box office opening in career history. And I think the worst one before that was Ben Affleck's early film, back in the 90s, called Phantoms, which opened up about, I want to say it was exactly $3 million, just about. And then it was Gillies, the one he did with J-Lo back in early 2000s, which did $3.4 million. So it sucks that this one didn't do well, but they didn't set it up for success. There's a lot of people who didn't get to go see this movie, like Super Bro Corey. His theater wasn't showing it, which was unfortunate because it is a cool concept. To me, it's a film that needs to be seen in cinema. I think that's where you're going to get the most enjoyment out of it. But we'll see. Worldwide, I think it did another, internationally it did $350,000 so far. So it's struggling. If they do decide to continue it, my hope is maybe they'll give it a shot on streaming, which at that point, I don't see Ben Affleck returning, which bums me out.
Yeah, I guess what I would hope for is that it at least if the first movie generates enough interest on streaming, at least then you kind of, it's a franchise starter. So maybe if it can generate interest for a sequel, it's what I think Black Adam could have done if Warner Brothers gave it more of a chance, which was let it play out in cinemas, then let it play out in theaters, build the interest there, then people are more hyped for the sequel. I think that, again, another parallel, poor marketing, just saying David Zaslav, when you make your decisions, anyway, a bit of a rant right there. But the point is, if they could if it gets does really good streaming numbers, they could still do a theatrical sequel because if more people see the concept, more people are interested in it. So they want to see the sequel right there. So I think that's one advantage that I think the sequel could have if it can generate on Peacock, if it does well on Peacock. So I still think there's potential because it is a low budget movie. And I do think they could do it with limited Ben Affleck. But also another thing too, Ben Affleck has a production company that maybe could help put some of the
co-produce dual studios with Ketchup Entertainment and Artist Equity.
Artist Equity. Yeah, because I think part of the deal now is that Artist Equity has to be involved in Ben Affleck's films. I don't know exactly how that works, but again, don't take what I say about these deals as fact. Anyone watching this, that stuff is confusing. But so Corey, though, I want to highlight this. So you only can watch Mario Bros. So the only option for Super Bowl Corey, a Snyderverse fan, is Super Mario Brothers. That is the only option for Super Bowl Corey. Then in that case, it looks like.
Yeah, and that was a similar thing for us, even here at some bigger AMC theaters is that Hypnotic was playing, but it was only playing in one of the theaters. And I get it. Part of that is it's the unfortunate of the times where cinema and theaters are trying to recover from, and they are recovering. There's no question about that, that they're definitely recovering from the COVID pandemic, but where they are putting their efforts in is these big blockbuster films that they know are going to make a lot of money, like Super Mario Brothers, like the Marvel films, like the Flash film that's going to be coming out soon, Indiana Jones. They're going to put all their theater screens because that's what is going to drive the audience in, and they need space for them, that they're not going to take their time with these smaller unknown franchises, that people are trying to build. And that's unfortunate. I don't think Robert Rodriguez quite has, he does have a following. That's absolutely true. He does have a following, but he doesn't have the following on the scale of someone like Christopher Nolan, Peter Jackson, Zack Snyder, Steven Spielberg, who their names alone are going to attract an audience to go see a movie, and bring in enough dollars to make cinemas and theaters put it in their theaters,
Yeah, it's funny what you say, what you Super Bowl Corey say, because I'm in the Chicago area, so I pretty much never have that kind of issue where the movie's not playing in my area. I mean, I'm in an area where the movie will be playing in my area because
you're in a higher demographic, right? Like, the theaters that are going to be able to have, and probably where Hypnotic was played mostly was like in the major cities like LA, Chicago, New York, probably Houston, because that's where the movie was filmed, so it was probably played in those areas. But like for here in Colorado, I can tell you the demographics here for cinema and like moviegoers. Colorado is like a weird instance where a lot of people don't go see movies anyways, because they prefer to be outdoors. So cinemas are in theaters. They're going to put most of their movie screens at their facilities with the bigger budget, the bigger blockbusters that are going to bring in the dollars rather than these smaller films.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a good point what you said there, is because you have the demographic that only wants to go see the bigger films. Sorry, I got a little distracted. You have another person or another animal, I guess, that wants to say, I don't know, does your dog have anything to contribute? Does he or she want to have an opinion on Hypnotic?
Ellie, do you have an opinion on Hypnotic? No, she just wants pets.
Well, dogs,
it's all an illusion,
dogs,
Ellie. It's all an illusion.
Dogs are hypnotists in a way. They look at you very cutely and they get you to do what they want. I'm just saying, they look at you with that face and you want to pet them, or they'll get on their back and they'll give you that look and you want to belly rub them. I'm just saying, dogs are pretty hypnotic.
No pun.
So I guess to kind of wrap this up, any final thoughts? And I know your spoiler-free review gave it a 7.1, but after discussing, did that change at all? For better or for worse?
No, I mean, and to be honest with you, I wanted to give it a 6.9. Like that's how like much the film didn't like do it for me. But the concept, like you said, the concept alone is such an insanely cool idea, and where they could go with it has me excited. That I'm looking forward more towards the future of this franchise rather than what we have now. So that's why I ended up giving a 7.1, was because I think it's a good start, but we can make something even better, so Jesus,
oh my God, Corey. And you're doing this on my show. Now
can I ban him in this one? Can I block him? Can I remove that?
No, he's a mod, and the only person on this channel who has the authority to ban mods is me, and I don't ban my friends from my shows. I'll ban them from their own shows, but I won't ban them.
You'll ban them from their own shows.
Yeah, I have no problem banning people from their own shows. Hey, it's your fault for not modding your own personal account. For all I knew, that was a fake Trey account, because how was I supposed to know that the Bat channel would not mod his own account? So, just saying.
Fired.
But I guess overall, I kind of have the same way. I feel like, again, it sets up great potential. In a way, I do think in some ways it's like Black Adam. Though Black Adam's a much better movie than Hypnotic, but a lot of its value is in setting up a really great franchise and a really great... But I think after talking about this film with you, my score for it went down. At first, I thought it was like an 8 point something, a 7.8 something.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to. I hate making people's scores go down.
But I mean, but when you really discuss in depth, like, I had these ideas, and I agree with you that unfortunately a lot of stuff missed its mark. So I have to give this film 7.2359876 out of 10. So I think there's a lot of potential for it to do better, but as Oracle Clock Tower says, ton of potential. Oh my God, I have to pull up some of Corey's comments. We usually avoid that number.
We do. Corey and I usually do try to avoid 6.9.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. For me, for all the films I've seen this year, I think I haven't seen Super Mario Brothers, so I can't judge on that. I'm sure that would probably be higher. Is it better than this movie? Hypnotic?
Yeah, I'd say it's a much better written movie than... I mean, also, I think kids' movies, it's not that hard because you don't have to... You can make it simpler.
Yeah,
I mean, still think with it, but still.
Yeah, I still think the best film so far this year is Air, which Ben Affleck did with Matt Damon, and that film is it's an Academy film. It's gonna destroy the Oscars next year. A film I watched just recently was The Pope's Exorcist, and that was another film that I would say the concept is brilliant for a horror film. The execution wasn't quite there, but I'm really excited to see where they're going with it. But that film, because it was a horror film, and horror films usually have like a budget of $30 million or less, with Russell Crowe in it. And that film not only got its money back, but they already greenlighted a sequel. So I'm hoping that maybe this film will have some traction. I'm worried though, because it didn't do so hot, that theaters are already going to start dropping it, and we're just going to see it pop up on Peacock soon. Because if you haven't seen it, I think you should go see it on cheap $2 Tuesday, or not $2,
$5.
cheap, $5 Tuesdays, I think AMC does, or whoever has a cheap day to go to the theaters and check out this movie. It is worth the watch. Like you said, anything above a 5 is worth the watch in cinema. And I thought this film, I think you will love the concept. I think you will love the performances that you get in it. And I think, like me, and this could have been their goal, is they wanted you to leave the theater wanting more. And I wanted a lot more. And that's not such a bad thing, but my brain is kind of going like, oh man, what if they go here? What if they go there? What if they do this? Like, and maybe that's, like you said, maybe that's the point. They want us to talk about it. They want us to discuss it. But for a film that you watch and then you never talk about again, that's usually a bad sign, I think that's why a lot of these directors like Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, you're able to talk about their films that came out 30 years ago or some sorts, or any time frame, and you're still talking about them, and I hope this is not a film that is forgotten. I hope they expand upon it.
I hope so too. And I think, a lot of films are more appreciated with time. Like, I think, like Man of Steel, for example, was one that there were a lot more haters for when it first came out. I mean, you still have your John Glovers out there, but in general, I think most people are starting to see the masterpiece that we both knew it was from the beginning. So, maybe that's what will happen with this film, is that maybe as time it'll just age better, and we'll see. I don't know if I should try to compare stuff to Zack Snyder's films, but I think there's a lot of great potential for this, and I hope there is a sequel as well. I think they need, if they can learn from their mistakes, I think a lot of great stuff can happen.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, since you mentioned your favorite movie of the year, I'll mention mine. My favorite movie is a horror film, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That's my favorite movie so far of 2020.
That right there, buddy, just that is the most bad shit crazy thing I've ever heard. Really? Are you being silly about it? I gotta know. Are you being serious? Or
I haven't seen that many movies this year, first of all. So just saying.
Did you see Air?
I haven't seen Air yet. No.
Oh, then okay. Then yeah, you can't even talk. What's the other film you've seen this year? So Winnie the Pooh, Super Mario Brothers,
Cocaine Bear.
Okay, you mean to tell me that even Super Mario didn't beat Winnie the Pooh?
For me personally, I like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey better. I can admit that maybe
You are not convincing me to see Super Mario Brothers right now. I'm just gonna wait until it comes to stream.
I really love Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That's not just a Super Mario Brothers. I just really love that Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Oh yeah, that shit. We're both.
He's bat shitting a lot right now.
What can
You're
I
making
say?
guano.
But yeah. So anyway, what were you gonna say though before I completely threw you off track? I guess.
I'm totally spacing. What did it? What was I gonna say? I have no idea anymore.
I just think, but overall, there's great potential of this film. I think there's so much of Hypnotic. There's so much great stuff that can happen, and again, I'm looking forward if they do a sequel. I think even if Ben Affleck's time is limited, because even if his screen time is limited, his production company might still be involved in it too. And
possibly it will be up to his choice, simply because he's the owner of artist equity. It doesn't mean he has to make it involved in everything he does when he acts in the film.
He's a co-owner.
He is a co-owner with Matt Damon, but
agreement though is what I'm thinking.
I don't think he signed any exclusivity as being an actor only for artist equity. But I don't know. You might be right. I guess we'll find out whenever he does. I think he's going to put a lot of time and focus in artist equity and start building stuff for that production company, because he's going to have to start earning it some money. And he certainly did that with the Air movie. And I think he has great partners over with Amazon, and Amazon is looking at doing even more cinema releases now. The cool thing is, and this was actually discussed at CinemaCon recently, is that the streaming services like Netflix, Peacock, Paramount Plus, they are all focused on releasing cinema releases, because and this is the funny part of where people said, oh, streaming's going to take over cinema and cinema's going to be dead in a few years. And what we're actually finding out is streaming services are looking at, they're not getting the type of money returns that they need to continue these big budgets, even with the large subscriber counts that they're getting. They're needing their films to have a limited theatrical run first to make up a lot of that money back and the profits back, so that way they can continue creating content. So I think there's a good relationship and a great conversation happening with streaming and theater circuits right now, where they're saying we need theater circuits are saying we need content. You're producing content. Get your money back by releasing it in theaters first for 2 or 3 weekends, which generally after the third weekend, unless if you have a big, blockbuster film that's going to take over the summer, usually you see a large decline after 3 weeks. So if you keep it in 4 weeks and then put it in streaming, you're going to make the money that you need to get most of your budget back. and then you're going to get the subscriber count, that's continuing to watch your stuff. There's really good development happening with streaming services doing theatrical releases, and I hope they look into that with especially this Zack Snyder Rebel Moon. Real question: has Batman seen Ace Ventura? What?
Sorry, yeah, I have not seen that one.
We can't be friends.
There's so much stuff I need to see. And I guess before we go to what's coming up, any final things you want to say with Hypnotic?
I enjoyed it. It was a good film. While I had issues and criticisms, I look forward to watching it again.
Yeah, same here. I think there's a lot of great potential, and I guess we'll kind of say what's coming up for you. What do you what's coming up on the Bat channel? Which, by the way, the link to his spoiler-free review is in the description. So I just decided to use that as a link to his channel too. So
perfect. That works. Thank you so much, brother. First off, thank you for having me here. It's always fun. When you asked if I could join you to talk about Hypnotic, I was like, yes. This is what I loved about this movie is I felt like it opened up a great conversation starter. There's so much you could take from it, and I feel like so many people could take different things from it and have different opinions on it. Like Sarah freaking loved it. To her it was better than the Air movie, because this was more of her type of film. It was very action-packed thriller, and rather than like a drama that the Air movie was. And for me, I was looking deep into this film, like breaking it down and trying to figure out the mystery of it. But as it was unfolding before me, and so yeah, I'm glad that we could have this discussion. So thank you for having me on. In terms of what's coming up on the Bat channel, we are now less than 100 away from 2,000 subscribers. So that is extremely exciting as we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary, I think at the end of July. I'm hoping that we can get there a little bit before, which would be awesome as we continue to build our community. So things that are coming up, I haven't decided yet, but maybe we'll do a birthday stream sometime this weekend or Monday, to celebrate with our family and our followers and stuff like that. I haven't decided if we're going to be doing something like that, but we will be reviewing Fast X, which comes out this weekend. Vin Diesel kicking out, seeing if the new trilogy that he's kicking off is going to be worth the watch as they get crazier and crazier. And then I'm trying to think. I think there's another big film that's coming up. I mean, we're just going to continue to put out great content, doing movie reviews, trailer reactions. We are going to be starting a gaming portion of our channel soon.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to be working with Orc and Beans 14 on that. So I'm excited for that development as we continue to kind of grow our platform. But yeah, man, just cool things happening over at the Bat channel. Super Bro Corey's still being the wild, crazy, cuckoo one, where he's going to be doing some more shorts for us. And we have some funny ideas that we think people are going to dig, as we Corey and I discuss that more. We kind of talked about and throw around some ideas that we think people are going to have a good laugh at. But yeah, man, we're also going to continue to raise money for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. As you guys know from our latest stream that we did with Wayne T. Carr and Samantha Wynn, we raised over $130. Well, actually, Corey and I it was a total of $800 that we raised for AFSP. So that was so cool. And part of that was from all the super chats we got. I'm just waiting for YouTube to kick that super chats to me so I can put it into AFSP. But yeah, man, exciting stuff. Cool things coming ahead.
Yeah, and I can't wait. I love seeing your channel grow. It was so cool that you got Samantha Wynn and Wayne T. Carr on your channel. And
they're lovely. I love them. They're seriously some of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever talked to. And in their eyes, they probably don't look at themselves like celebrities. Obviously to our community, they are, and they are, in truth, they are. But I think that's part of how humble they are, how sweet they are, and it was literally like talking to two old friends, which was incredible.
Yeah, really nice. It's really nice when you can really establish that connection. And thank you for coming on my channel though too, because it's really fun having you on. It's always real fun collaborating with you, whether it's on the Bat channel or whether it's on Bat Dance Thoughts. Just both. It's really fun. And then when we do get to that Batman v Superman review, which we will get to it, would have you and Corey on. I cannot wait for that one. That one is going to be a great video. But I guess for me coming up on my channel for now, I'm gonna put my full energy into preparing for the Flash film. So that means that I'm gonna do some reviews on Batman 1989. I'm gonna try to do a discussion on the hype for the Flash film. I'm also, because I heard that it's like there's some similarities to Back to the Future. I'm going to watch Back to the Future for the very first time in my life, because I have not seen that movie yet either. That true story. I have not seen Back to the Future, and I'll do a review on that movie. So again, well, hopefully this stuff will pan out, because life gets in the way. So, and I might make some exceptions. Like I'll try to get a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse review up before Across the Spider-Verse, and maybe some Indiana Jones content too to hype up that.
Yeah. Oh, that is one thing Corey and I are going to do. We're going to do a watch party of all the films leading up to the new Indiana Jones. So if you want to join us for that,
oh yeah,
it'd be cool to have you, because they're now on Disney Plus. So literally,
not
like
yet. May 31st.
The Friday before. Oh yeah, sorry. The Friday before the new movie comes out, Corey and I will be doing, leading up to that week. Leading up to that Friday start, we'll do each night Indiana Jones watch party. So 4 nights of fun.
Can't wait. Well, sounds like more like 3 nights of fun and 1 night of nah.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was good. Wasn't amazing, but it was good.
I might have to rewatch it to see, because don't need critics' opinions in my head, but that will sound fun. Again, guys, lots of great stuff coming up on our channels. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. And tune in next time, same bat time.
Same Bat Dance channel.
And lastly, sorry, one more thing I want to say before I say to have a bat-tastic day. Don't forget, tomorrow on Skywalker the Jedi's channel, there will be a watch party for Justice League the Animated Series on Netflix. You have to watch this on Netflix with your bowl of cereal to show the hype to Netflix for DC's characters, for, Justice League characters, if you want to see certain Justice League sequels on Netflix. Just wanted to say that before I say this part here. Have a bat-tastic day.
See you there.